I decided to visit her on a quiet Saturday afternoon. I called first, telling her I was feeling overwhelmed, that bills were piling up and work was wearing me down. The sympathy in her voice was thin but convincing enough. "Come by, sweetheart," she said. "We'll talk it through. You've always had trouble managing things on your own." I let her believe she was in control again. That was exactly what I needed. When I arrived, the house smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner. Everything looked the same, yet smaller somehow. She greeted me with a soft smile, full of practiced concern. "You look tired," she said, brushing imaginary lint from my sleeve. I thanked her, keeping my tone quiet, almost defeated. Inside, my phone was already recording from my pocket. I sat across from her at the table where she'd signed away my inheritance. I told her I'd been struggling with rent, that I wished Dad were still around to give advice. Her eyes flickered, just for a second, before settling into that calm, self-satisfied look she always wore. "Your father always worried too much about you," she said, stirring her coffee. "He didn't understand how the world works." I asked softly, "Do you ever think he'd be upset about what happened with the money?" She gave a small laugh, like the question amused her. "Upset? No, honey. It was your father's money, and I was his wife. I decided what was best for this family." My pulse jumped, but I forced my expression to stay steady. She went on talking, unaware of the phone in my pocket catching every word. "Your brother needed help, and I wasn't going to let him fail. That's what mothers do. You'll understand when you have children." I let a moment of silence stretch between us before I asked, "So, it wasn't really Dad's decision?" She smiled again, that same hollow, triumphant smile. "Your father left things to me because he trusted my judgment. I used it for the good of the family. You wouldn't have known what to do with it anyway." The words hit harder than I expected, not because they surprised me, but because they confirmed everything I already knew. She had taken what wasn't hers, and she wasn't sorry. She never would be. I stood up slowly, pretending to be thankful for her advice. She squeezed my hand and told me to keep my chin up, as if she hadn't just confessed to rewriting my father's last wish. I smiled back, not out of kindness but finality. As I stepped outside, the cold air hit my face, and I took a long breath. My heart was racing, but my mind was clear. The phone was still recording in my pocket, the sound of her voice echoing softly through my earbuds when I checked it. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I walked to my car, gripping the phone so tightly my hand ached. For the first time, I wasn't powerless. I finally had everything I needed. The next morning, I walked into Mr. Keen's office with the recording saved in 3 different places and every document neatly stacked in a folder. He listened to the audio, face still, only nodding once when it ended. "This is enough," he said quietly. "We'll move forward." Together we filed the claim through the estate court, outlining misuse of funds, fraudulent transfers, and breach of fiduciary duty. I signed every page slowly, making sure my signature meant something this time. Mr. Keen refused to take payment. "Your father trusted me," he said. "I'm just finishing what he started." He handled every detail himself: subpoenas, filings, letters to the bank. Within days, the court froze all accounts connected to the estate, including the joint one Mom had opened with Evan. The news reached them faster than I expected. Evan called first, voice high and shaky. "What the hell did you do?" he snapped. "My accounts are locked. I can't access a dime." I didn't raise my voice. "You might want to call your lawyer," I said, then hung up before he could respond. By the end of the week, Mom called too. Her voice wasn't soft anymore. It cracked with anger. "You're destroying your own family," she screamed through the phone. "After everything I've done for you. Do you have any idea how this looks?" I let her rant, listening to every accusation, every attempt to make me the villain. When she finally paused for breath, I spoke quietly. "You did that the day you stole from me." The silence that followed was heavy, stretched thin between us. Then she hung up. Mr. Keen kept me updated as the case moved forward. He explained how the court had reviewed the transfers, how the audit showed that the estate money had been used to fund Evan's fake business and cover Mom's personal debts. "They'll have to answer for every dollar," he told me. I went back to work, keeping my head down, pretending life was ordinary while everything shifted behind the scenes. Evan tried reaching out again, switching from anger to pleading. "Mom's losing it," he said. "Can't we fix this quietly?" I told him it was out of my hands now. He didn't call again. Hearing that their accounts were frozen brought no joy, only a steady calm. For the first time, the power wasn't tilted against me. They couldn't twist this into guilt or family loyalty. It was law, plain and cold. One evening, I walked past the courthouse steps where the paperwork had been filed, the windows glowing in the dusk. The world looked the same, people rushing, cars honking, but inside me, something had settled. Mom could scream, Evan could panic, but it didn't matter anymore. The reckoning had already begun, and this time, they couldn't talk their way out of it. The courtroom felt colder than I expected. The pale lights, the echo of footsteps, the quiet shuffle of papers, It all made time slow down. I sat behind Mr. Keene at the long wooden table, hands clasped in my lap, eyes fixed on the bench ahead. Mom sat across the aisle, dressed neatly, chin raised, pretending calm. Evan looked different, thinner, restless, tapping his foot nonstop. The evidence came out piece by piece. Bank statements, property records, transfers written in her handwriting. Each document landed like a small explosion. Mr. Keene presented them carefully, his tone steady but sharp. These funds were part of the estate, he said, and were used for personal benefit. Mom kept her gaze forward, but her jaw tightened with every word. Then came the part that even I hadn't expected. The financial investigator testified that not only had Mom transferred my share into Evan's account, but she'd later withdrawn additional funds to cover her credit cards and refinance the house. It wasn't about helping Evan anymore. It was about saving herself. I glanced at her, hoping for a flicker of remorse. There was none, just the same practiced composure. Evan tried to speak during his turn, claiming he didn't know where the money came from. The judge cut him off after 2 sentences. The fake business paperwork, the missing tax forms, the altered signatures, all of it came back to him. Fraud, plain as day. When it was over, the judge's ruling came fast. The estate was to be corrected and restored. My portion, with interest, would be transferred back to me. Additional damages were approved for misuse of funds. Mom's property would be sold to satisfy part of the judgment. Evan's accounts would remain frozen pending criminal review. Mom didn't look at me when the decision was read. She just stared down at her hands, fingers twisting the edge of a handkerchief. Evan muttered under his breath, disbelief turning into anger, but even he knew there was nowhere left to hide. Outside the courthouse, the air felt strangely still. Mr. Keene shook my hand and told me my father would have been proud. I nodded, though the words caught somewhere deep inside me. This wasn't triumph, it was something heavier, quieter. In the weeks that followed, I heard about the fallout in fragments. The house went on the market. Evan's business license was revoked. Mom's friends stopped calling. Every secret they'd built around themselves was unraveling in daylight. One morning, I stood outside the home I'd grown up in and saw a for sale sign leaning in the yard. The curtains were still drawn, but the place already looked empty. For years, I'd carried anger like a weight. Now it was gone, replaced by something softer. The sense that my father's promise had finally been kept. It wasn't revenge. It was justice, his not mine. Months passed quietly after the case ended. Life began to feel steady again. I worked my shifts, came home to my small apartment, and started saving for a house. The silence that used to scare me now felt peaceful. I hadn't heard from Mom or Evan in a long time, and I thought maybe that was how it would stay. Then one evening, my phone rang. The name on the screen froze me in place, Mom. For a moment, I almost didn't answer. Curiosity won. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered, thin and raspy. "Lena," she said, "I've been sick. The doctors say it's serious." I didn't know who else to call. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, shallow and uneven. She started talking about appointments, bills, how lonely the house had become. She didn't mention Evan. I could tell from her tone that he wasn't around anymore. Maybe he'd run off. Maybe he couldn't face her. It didn't matter. She asked if I could come by, just to talk. I agreed, though I didn't say why. It wasn't forgiveness I was bringing. It was an ending. When I walked into the house, everything looked different. The furniture was gone, the walls bare, the air thick with the smell of medicine. She was sitting in the same kitchen chair where I'd once recorded her confession, wrapped in a blanket, face pale and tired. Her eyes searched mine like she was looking for the daughter she used to control. "I didn't think you'd come," she whispered. I stood near the counter, not sitting, not moving closer. "You said you needed help," I replied. She nodded, swallowing hard. I wanted to see you. I made mistakes. But family comes first, right?" Her voice cracked on the last word, half question, half plea. For a long time, I didn't speak. The clock ticked softly behind us. I remembered the years of being dismissed, manipulated, and made to feel small. All of it had started with those same words. Family comes first. Finally, I looked her in the eye. "Exactly," I said quietly, and I finally put myself first. Her face fell, not in anger but in understanding. Maybe for the first time, she realized what she'd done, how much she'd taken, how deeply she'd broken the meaning of family. I didn't wait for her to answer. I turned toward the door, my footsteps echoing against the empty floor. She called my name once, softly, but I didn't stop. When I stepped outside, the cold air felt clean, almost new. As I walked to my car, I didn't look back. The chapter that had defined my life, all the guilt, the lies, the control, ended right there in that house. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. Hey besties. Thanks for staying with me till the end of this story. Imagine your own mom taking what your dad meant for you, calling it family first, and handing it to your brother. That betrayal hurt, but it also taught me how to stand up for myself. Justice came slow, but it came. If this story moved you, share, drop a comment, and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.